Hey everybody, welcome to episode 47. Today I'm going to talk about one of my other favorite bands of all time. I don't know if Rush I'd say is still my favorite, but I don't know if I have a favorite per se. It just depends on what I'm in the mood for. Like I said, my favorite could be this band, it could be Iron Maiden, it could be Rush, it could be Yes. Um, but there's about a handful of bands, that are my all-time favorites. And this one is, let's see what's the best, is Blue Oyster Cult. This is a live album. This is On Your Feet or On Your Knees. This is an original pressing. I currently only have three Blue Oyster Cult records on LP, and two of them are live, and one of them is a studio album, but this is one of them. And so with Blue Oyster Cult, I think I first discovered them, I want to say high school. I don't know what year. And I kind of vaguely knew of them. I heard the name before. I saw the heavy metal movie that came out in '81. I saw it at the theater with my dad, and I saw it with some friends of mine, and there was kind of an incident with that. I'll probably get more into that when I talk about the actual movie, Heavy Metal, the movie. Trying to acquire. I've got it on Blu-ray. But I want to get the soundtrack. The soundtrack's very hard to find, very hard to get when it goes for big money. So there's a soundtrack, which is the musical, which is all the good music on it, and then there's the score by Elmer Bernstein. But one of the tracks on there is Veteran of a Psychic War, and it's pretty distinctive when you hear it in the movie. And it was supposed to be, they had an album, and I'll go through their albums, and they had an album called Fire of Unknown Origin that was debuted in 1981. And that album was supposed to be the entire soundtrack of the movie. But I guess that all the labels, or the label that it was on at the time, suggested, hey, maybe we shouldn't do this. Maybe you guys shouldn't do this as an album. You maybe should reserve this for a studio album. We'll use some music off of it, but we really want to feature some of the other bands we have on our label. So they ended up, it became a compilation of other people, Devo, Stevie Nicks, who else is on there? Don Felder. I'm just trying to think of all of them. It's totally escaping me at the moment. There's a lot of that whole soundtrack's awesome. And but the Blue Oyster Cult song is definitely on there. And so I knew of the movie and I knew of the song, and then through various music magazines that I started to get into after, say, '83. I think I had seen Blue Oyster Cult mentioned a few times, and then I remember it was a kind of a joke for a while. It was like, every time you saw somebody open up, like an opening band, they were always opening up for, or Blue Oyster Cult was opening, or they were opening up for Blue Oyster Cult, or Blue Oyster Cult was always opening up for them. I know Blue Oyster Cult did open up for Kiss in 1979, I believe, and I'll get into that story. So I actually had seen them live, but I didn't really know at the time, because I was really young, who that was. And they didn't play a huge set, and it was at the Pontiac Silverdome. I don't know if you've ever seen a concert at the Pontiac Silverdome, but you can't hear anything. I saw Metallica, Kid Rock, and Ted Nugent New Year's Eve 1999 at the Silverdome, and it was just a wall of sound. I couldn't hear you couldn't distinctly hear the music at all. So the Silverdome's not the best place to see a theater. I also remember my dad saying, when we saw that concert in 1979, he said the AMC Eagle ended up overheating in the parking lot because we were trying to get out of the parking lot. It was so jam-packed. He said, I'm never going to come and see a concert at the Silverdome again, and I don't believe he did. And I don't think, I didn't either up until that concert, which was 20 years later. 89, 99, 20 years later, I finally saw a concert there. So anyways, Um, again, this is about Blue Oyster Cult. So I had seen them, but I didn't really know. Just like there's a few opening bands for other concerts that I saw that I know them now, but at the time I didn't really know exactly who they were because I was really young. Um, but anyways, uh, so I kind of, I guess, discovered them truly for the first time, in, I would say, in high school, and that's because of, remember I was talking about Tora Tuesday down in Ferndale, and going down to Comics Cafe to see all the anime. And like I said, when there was something boring or I had to take a break from watching anime, I would go down to Sam's Jams and look for records, and I was just pulling tons of records from there. They're $1 a piece, $2 a piece. So I was just like, boom, 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 just grabbing any record. I really wasn't really super concerned on the condition. I kind of looked at the condition, but I got I got all the Rush records there. I got up to that point, not all of them, but most of them. Yes albums. I got and Blue Oyster Cult was one of them. This particular album was one of the ones that I grabbed at first. I always kind of liked the cover. I always thought it was cool. I always thought it was a hearse, but it's a limousine. It's parked out in front of this church. And it's a really cool Blue Oyster Cult, very metal, look metallic looking, logo font there, or logo type. And then you've got the symbol. So the symbol is, they call it the Cross of Confusion. Also, it's the alchemist symbol for lead, with heavy metal. But that's always been their symbol, and I always thought that was cool. I used to put that symbol on everything. I used to always draw that symbol on everything. I used to always draw it on my inside of my arm like a tattoo. And I always thought that was pretty cool. They had a guitar. They have a guitar. Eric Bloom from one guitar, the singer of the band. He had the guitar that's shaped like the symbol. It's pretty cool. It's appeared, I think, on every single album, I believe. Maybe not all of them, but most of them. And right away, listen to this album. This is a live album, and I heard that. And this is the tour from '75. This is actually basically first live album after the 3 studio albums, and it was. It's kind of knocked my socks off just how good they were, and and there's just how much energy that concert had. The other album that I have, again, this is original too, and all of these are in pretty good condition. The covers are a little faded, but they're still in pretty decent condition. Here's Cultosaurus erectus. This is their 1980 addition to their discography, and I believe this is. What is this? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is their 7th studio album. And this is a pretty good one. This has got Black Blade on it, which is the song about Stormbringer from Elric. And so that really kind of hit home when I realized what that was all about. And that's also live on the following album I'm going to show you here. What else was on? I think that was their main hit off this album that I think shows up on like the greatest hits and stuff. I never really looked at see what the singles were. I mean, obviously, like Don't Fear the Reaper is a single, Burning for You is a single, but I'm just curious to see what usually these 2 singles off every studio album. And I'm just wondering what the singles were out there. I have to look that up. And then, of course, this one I got. Now, when I got this one, and I also got it right about that same time, this one I remember I ended up dubbing down to cassette tape to listen to my Walkman. And I brought it to school with my Walkman and listened to this album a lot. I remember listening to it on the bus all the time. And I always just thought it was so cool. It's like, you got this mothership, this spaceship coming down. I loved Dobermans at the time. I mean, I still like Dobermans, but I mean, Doberman's like one of my favorite dogs. Everything about it. This guy here is the guy off the Fire of Unknown Origin album, which is the album just previous to this, which was supposed to be the heavy metal soundtrack. So you've got the whole heavy metal magazine, heavy metal movie vibe. You've got all of this stuff kind of just keyed together. And then the song ETI, this is ETI Live, or ETL, Extraterrestrial Live. And ETI, Extraterrestrial Intelligence, is one of the songs, which is off of Is that off Cultosaurus? Sorry, yeah, Cultosaurus erectus. I believe so. I can't remember exactly. I think it's off Cultosaurus erectus. I don't. It's not off of Fire of Unknown Origin. What other album would it be off of? Wasn't off Mirrors. I think it was off Cultosaurus. It has to be. I'll look it up to see specifically, but I'm pretty sure that's what it's off of. But anyways, I just love it. There's just lines in the song like, you know, I guess I'll pull it out here. I'll show you the inside of this this gatefold too. Yeah, the band was on the back. You know, and this one's got some pretty good ring damage. That's why I'm trying to prevent ring damage by putting them out on the sleeves. But I always like the inside of this cool space guy, which is also very indicative of the space guy that was driving the convertible Corvette in the beginning of heavy metal. But let me find ETI, extraterrestrial intelligence. I hear the music Daylight Disc. 3 Men in Black said, "Don't report this." I always thought that was cool, and I didn't really know what that meant until later on when I met some friends who were very into like UFO conspiracies and stuff. They're talking about the Men in Black, the Men in Black. And I said, yeah, I mentioned it in a Blue Oyster Cult song. The 3 Men in Black said, "Don't report this," so they're trying to cover up. It was a cover-up. That's what the Men in Black would do. Some people thought they were aliens. Some people thought they were government, hatchet men that would come and silence you if so you don't talk about your abduction case or whatever, or your close encounter with the third kind. Ascension, and that's all they said. Sickness now, the hour of dread. All praise he's found. The awful truth, Balthazar. Where's the other line that I like in here that I still use today? My buddy uses it all the time. He always texts me with it too. Where is it? Here he goes. All praise he's found the awful truth, Balthazar. He's found the saucer news, which I'm assuming that meant that he's discovered that aliens are real. Kind of with the things that are going on right now in Congress, it's kind of funny, all those conspiracy theories about aliens being true. I don't know, maybe they are. Who knows? I'm not a believer, nor am I a disbeliever. I don't know. I need proof. So I don't know. Maybe we'll get our proof finally that aliens do exist. Somehow I doubt it. I'm not saying that aliens don't exist or there's not life out there in the universe, but I mean, somehow I doubt that all this stuff going on is what people want it to be, I think, or think it is, But so anyways, yeah. So like I said, my friend always because the saucer. It's like whenever you know about something that nobody else knows about, you've got the saucer news. So he always says, he always texts me, "Hey, what's the saucer news this week?" So Blue Oyster Cult's very ingrained in my DNA now. But anyways, let me show you the studio, or all of the albums, including the live albums, and I'm going to show you, these are the albums that I had and say want again on vinyl. They're still today. They have a new album out. I think they put out last year or the year before, and they're still around. They're still tour. Almost the entire band is gone. It's just Donald Rozier, or Buck Dharma as he's called, and Eric Bloom. I think those are the only remaining members. Alan Lanier, who seemed like he was with them through every incarnation, he's not there. He's the keyboard player. And I don't know, I haven't checked, but maybe he passed away, I don't know. Because usually he's always there, and he's not on this newest album. So either he retired and says, "Hey, guys, I'm getting too old for this shit," or he passed away. I don't know, I have to look that up. And of course the other two members were the Boucard brothers, Al Boucard and Joe Boucard. Al was the drummer, and Joe was the bass player. So, they've got a new bass player and a new drummer. I think the drummer they have currently, I believe, was the drummer that when I saw him in concert, when I knew who they were, in the 90s, I went and saw him, and I'll tell you that story. But, yeah, so here's the all the albums. I said I had most of these on. I take it back. I was going to Sam's Jams. I had On Your Feet or On Your Knees, the album I have now. I had Agents of Fortune. That's the album with Don't Fear the Reaper on it. I had ATI Live, and I believe I had Secret Treaties. So I didn't know that, this is before the internet, so I was trying to track down how many albums they had. And then I started buying them on cassette. And because I had my buddy of mine actually got this cassette called Courier of Evil, which was a really good compilation. It's got a lot of it is drawn from the live albums, and a lot of it's from ETI Live. They got a couple of tracks from On Your Feet or On Your Knees, and then the other ones are just studio tracks. And it's a really good compilation, really cool cover. And then I ended up picking it up on cassette because I wanted a copy of it myself. I never had it on vinyl. I did find a CD of it, and my son wanted a Blue Oyster Cult album. He got a few of them, and that was one of the ones I found for him. But so I started buying them cassette. When I started buying them cassette, I started learning about new albums, because I actually got most of my Blue Oyster Cult cassettes from not Off the Record in Royal Oak. What was the other record store? The one around the corner. It was down the street from Dave's Comics on South Washington Street. Dave's Comics not there anymore. That was the Royal, not the Ann Arbor Dave's, but the Dave's in Royal Oak. Repeat the Beat. Repeat the Beat was and I think Repeat the Beat moved up to, we were just up in that area up by Holland. I think Grand Haven. I think there's a record store called Repeat the Beat up there. I'm just wondering, or no, was it Off the Records up there? I think one of them moved. I don't know what record stores downtown Royal Oak. We didn't get there when I was down there on my trip down that away just recently. I know there are two record stores, and I think one of them is on South Washington, and I think it's in the old Repeat the Beat building. It was not called Repeat the Beat. Off the Records was like the cool record store. That's where all the cool people hung out. They had the Cat. The Cat had a name. And that's where you get all the imports and bootlegs and stuff. And that was like the cool record store. And then there was Repeat the Beat, which was a cool record store, but it was more, they didn't really dabble in a lot of the other, like, coolness. It was just a straight-up record store. And it was a good one, too. And I got most of my cassettes from there. A couple of them I think I found used at Solo Records on Woodward, the original Solo, the one in the Green Building. But yeah, I found out new albums like the original album, Blue Oyster Cult. I think I had the original album on LP. And I think I might have had Tear Mutation. I think I had most of them. I didn't know about Spectres at the time. And we're talking high school here. Spectres, I found Some Enchanted Evening at like Meyer in their records and tapes department. Just on accident one night. We were just, it was kind of a thing. You go hang out at night, on the weekend or whatever, and just, try to get into trouble, and which we did. And you'd end up because Myers was 24 hours, you'd end up at Myers at some point. You'd either end up at Ramshorn, getting food and coffee, or smoking cigarettes, or you'd end up at Meyer in the middle of the night. Yeah, it was just a thing to do, and you'd run into other kids doing the same thing because there's nothing else open. And anyway, so I'd go to Meyer, and I found Some Enchanted Evening, and then I made a joke. I'll tell you when I have a joke about that one too. Mirrors I found on cassette. I think that was off from Repeat the Beat. I think that's when I found Cultosaurus erectus, and I remember saying the title in the back of my friend's car. I said, he's like, hey, what records did you pick up? And I'm like, I got Blue Oyster Cult's Cultosaurus erectus. And he just starts laughing. He's like, what the hell are you talking about? That's the album, is what it's called. He's like, that's the goofiest title I've ever heard of an album. I'm like, it's funny. And that's also become the butt of a lot of jokes. Cultosaurus erectus. I don't know how many times we'd say, like, oh, he's, it's like, we used to say, like, he'd be culturally erect, which meant, like, somebody starts, like, geeking out about, like foreign culture. It gets, there's certain friends that I had that got all geeked up about foreign culture, and And it's just always just like, oh, here he goes. He's gonna start getting. He's geeked up on this. He's geeked up on this. He loves his shawarmas and his Indian food, or not Indian, but Lebanese food. And so my one friend would, he's the saucer news guy. He'd always hit me in the shoulder and go, he's getting culturally erect over there. And I said, Cultosaurus erectus. So then it became the term. Whenever somebody was getting culturally erect, we'd say he's getting Cultosaurus erectus. Which was our code, and then the other person had no idea what we're talking about. And then, what? Nothing. Anyways, and then Fire of Unknown Origin, I finally did end up getting. I ended up getting Fire of Unknown Origin on LP, and I got this after I started the tape collection, and I still had the album collection. I was like, oh, and I might have gotten that down at Sam's Jams again. Just popped up. And then I don't think the only ones I bought brand new, as in they weren't brand new as in they had already come out. They weren't new releases, but they're brand new as in sealed copies that weren't used copies. Was well, I guess Some Enchanted Evening was new because I got that from Meyer. They didn't sell used albums. Was as you see here, 1986 Club Ninja and Imaginos. No, I actually didn't get them. No, I did get it. I got Club Ninja on cassette. I don't think I got Imaginos. I got Imaginos for the first time on CD, and I believe I got it in 1989. So, and that's the year I kind of started to get. 90 was the year I started to get CDs. So I set that on, I think, at least a year. So it was pretty close to its original. And I never bought any Öyster called after that. They've come out with a bunch of greatest hits, and they have had some studio albums they've done way after the fact, but I never bought them. And so it comes around to, I don't know if I told this story in one of my other videos already, but we used to work at the Hampton Movie Theater. This is just out of high school. This is 1991, 1992. I was just out of high school. And we worked me and a bunch of my friends, we all worked at the Hampton Movie Theater up in Rochester Hills, up on Hamlin and Rochester Road. And it was a second-run theater at the time, so meaning it was like they had dollar movies, and it got crazy busy on the weekends. And it was a pretty fun job, but I remember, I don't know if anybody remembers Metro Times, but the Metro Times used to be around. It was like a magazine, newspaper. It would come out, I think, every Wednesday, and it would be at all the record stores and bookstores and all the hip places. And it was a free magazine, and then the back of it, more of a newspaper than a magazine, but they had articles, and then the back of it they'd have listings of all the local shows. And the Detroit area in the 90s. I mean, I'm sure it was. I think it was a little too young to go to a lot of them in the 80s, but in the 90s I went to a lot of shows in the 90s, and there was a huge underground scene. A lot of local bands. Grunge was popular at the time. A lot of alternative bands were getting super popular, and a lot of the alternative bands came to town. Jesus Jones, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Pearl Jam, Nirvana, all that stuff started to come around and play these like the Fox and the State Theater downtown Detroit on Woodward. But like I said, so I got this paper. I picked it up one day before I went to work, and I went there early. I had to open that morning, and so when you get there early, the guy who was cleaning up the place, the janitor guy or housekeeping, whatever you want to call him, he was just finishing up about that time. And this guy in particular, he looked like Otto from The Simpsons. He had long hair and the hat, and kind of a tall, guy, real skinny and tall, dark hair, and he always wore cargo shorts in the middle of the winter, and he always like this. He's like, yeah, man, wow, man, yeah. That's how the guy talked all the time. And so anyways, I was sitting down on the little cushioned seats, right there in the lobby, kind of, just hanging out, which I did until, he's done. Once he's done, then we can start opening up theaters and stuff. And anyways, I'm sitting there and I'm reading the Metro Times, and I go, "Holy shit!" And he's like, "What, man?" And I'm like, Blue Oyster Cult's playing tonight in Roseville in a place called Todd's Bar. And he goes, ah. He's like, Todd's Bar. He's like, I know, he goes, Todd's Bar is not, it's not the Todd's Bar that I remember, though. It's changed. And I had no idea what he's talking about. I never heard of Todd's Bar. I heard of the Ritz in Ferndale, but I never heard of Todd's Bar. Anyways, this is the winter, by the way. And so, anyways, my buddy started to get there, and I said to him, I said, hey, Blue Oyster Cult's playing at this place called Todd's Bar in Roseville, which is like East Detroit, over there on Gratiot, or off of Gratiot. I think it was off of Gratiot. I know Ritz is on Gratiot. Todd's Bar might not have been off of Gratiot, but it was over in that general. It's Roseville. So, I said, hey, you guys want to go? And then my other buddy, this is the Ruther buddy, he goes, do you think they got you can get tickets at Ticketmaster for that? I'm looking around here, I'm like, yeah, tickets available at Ticketmaster. So I don't know if everybody remembers Ticketmaster. I think they're still around online, but they used to have like these outlets, Ticketmaster outlets, and they'd be in the weirdest places. Like one was in like a trolley car inside Meadowbrook Mall. And one of them was in the back of Harmony House, which is the record store. And like I said, we were at Hamlin and Rochester Road in the Hampton Shopping Center in the very back corner at this point. Across the street, Rochester Road, and across over on Hamlin in the corner by Hamlin Pub, over there was was Harmony House, which was the big record store at the time. And that's where they had a Ticketmaster booth in the back of the store. So I said, let's go over there. I said, I don't think the doors open at 10 o'clock, so we got plenty of time because we were getting out of there. We were opening, so we were getting out of there at like, I don't know, 6 or whatever, before the evening, the Twilight movie would play. We got out of there. So I said, let's go run over there and get tickets if they're available, and then, and we'll hang out and do something, or we'll go home and, get showered up and stuff and get dolled up, and we'll go to this concert. I said, okay. So we went over to Ticketmaster, and they had tickets. I'm going to pull this off the album here so you can see. So they had tickets. They said, yeah, how many do you need? I said, well, we need 3. This is general admission, so no seats. I'm like, okay. I thought, oh, cool, we got to get there early so we can get up against the stage. That'd be cool. I'd never been to this place, so I had no idea what it looked like. But it's a bar, and according to Otto, or whatever that guy's name was, Joe, I think his name was, he was telling us, he's like, yeah. So anyways, when he said Todd's Bar, it's not the Todd's Bar. I remember we come to find out later that Todd's Bar used to be a gay bar. So apparently he knew about it at that time, or he was going to Todd's Bar. I'm not sure on that one, but I just thought it was funny. The Blue Oyster Bar and Police Academy, which was a gay bar. You got Blue Oyster Cult playing at Todd's Bar. Todd's Bar used to be a gay bar. It's just funny, ironic, I guess. So, I apparently wasn't a gay bar at this time, right? Not that I don't have no problem with it being a gay bar. I still would have gone to Blue Oyster Cult there, I don't think there was going to be any girls at Blue Oyster Cult anyways, so it doesn't matter if it was all gay guys. We were young, so maybe we'd get some free drinks out of it. But anyways, so we go, well, we weren't old enough to drink at the time. But anyways, we go, we were all like 19. We're 19. Oh, we might not even have been 19 yet. This is winter of 90. Yeah. This is winter of 92. So yeah, I was 19. And anyways, so we go home, we get dolled up, whatever. And I said, I'll drive. I'll take my dad's car. My dad did this. I don't even know what it was, a Plymouth, or it was this like 80s boxy K car looking thing. And my other friends were, you sure you want to drive? It's supposed to be crazy snowstorm tonight. I said, well, it wasn't a brand new car. It was where he just got it, and when he got it, he bought it used, but they had brand new tires. And I said, well, it's got brand new tires on it, so it's probably our best bet. Because my other friend said, yeah, my Daytona's it'd be going circles in the snow. And I think my other buddy at the time, I think he had his dad's old Buick. I think he had a Buick. And he's like, yeah, he goes, if you don't want to drive, I can drive. I said, no, I'll drive. So I got my dad's car, and I went and I got the guys or whatever, and we headed out there, and it was a snowstorm. I mean, it was. I made the joke. I said, "Oh, I'm ready for some enchanted evening." But anyways, I said, "I hope we get there alive," because it was really bad. I mean, it was. We were going like 20 miles an hour down the road, down Gratiot, and so we're cruising down Gratiot, and we get down to, and we finally find. This is before the internet. This was before GPS was for anything. Basically, we had to go on just like word of mouth. It's down off the street, and you turn left, and So we kind of vaguely knew where it was. We figured if we got lost, we'd just stop, which I think we ended up doing. I think we stopped at a restaurant or something that was busy, and asked people if they knew where Todd's Bar was. And so we go to Todd's Bar there, and it's a small place, and it's on one of the mile roads. I'm sure it's gone now. But anyways, it's on one of the mile roads. Then we go there, and there's like nobody there. The doors open at 10. We got there at like 10:01. Even though it took us forever to get there, we started out so early. And so we got there, and it's funny. I remember me and my one friend, the Ruther guy, we went right up to the front of the stage, and the stage was only about maybe 4 feet off the ground. So it was this tiny little club, and I said to, and then my other friend, for some reason, he didn't want to stand. I don't know why. And so he sat he didn't sit at a table. He sat on the table, or like this weird kind of island thing, and he sat there the whole time. He goes, "You guys just go on ahead." I'm like, "What?" It's like, there's nobody here. We can go wherever we want to go. He's like, "I just want to sit here." So he stayed back there, and he stayed there the whole concert. I remember looking back, and I'm like, what's he doing? Just sitting there on this table, and there's people wanting to use the table to put their drinks and stuff, and it's weird. I think he eventually came up, towards the end of the show, before the encore. I think he finally, snaked his way up to us. But me and the other guy are standing up there, and of course, then this other guy comes in, and this older guy, and he was really weird. And he's this tall, lanky, almost looked like R. Crumb. I would say R. Crumb was probably the closest approximation of this guy. And he had this silver, almost like a silver Japanese man's business suit that was just metallic radiating silver. Not chrome, but just a silver, very silvery suit on, with a jacket and pants. And then he had on, underneath it, he had on the first album cover, he had on the concert t-shirt, and I think he said it was from 1975, so he was during that On Your Feet, On Your Knees tour, and he says, yeah, I was there. I'm like, he's a lot older than us. Now you gotta remember, this is 1992, so this is 29 years ago, almost 30 years ago, so you gotta think, that guy was probably, my dad turned 50 in 1993. This guy had to have at least 10 years on my dad. So this guy was 60 then. So he's got to be dead now. But anyways, he's really creepy, and he's just he was just a super fan of Blue Oyster Cult. And you want some Cloves gum? He kept offering us Cloves gum, and then I said, sure. And then my friend's like, you sure didn't put acid in this? And I'm going, I guess there's only one way to find out. So, he gave us Cloves. There wasn't anything in the Cloves gum. He gave us Cloves gum, and it was weird. And I don't know if that was signal for something. I don't know. You always wonder what's going on. It's always these urban myths of Cloves gum means this, or this means this, or this means this. But anyways, so the first band that came out, I remember, was Psycho Funkopus. And they were okay. They were only on for 40 minutes or whatever. And then finally waiting for Blue Oyster Cult. And when they were setting up for Blue Oyster Cult, bringing the guitars out and setting all that stuff up, they brought the two microphone stands out. And we were standing in front of one of them. And I thought that they didn't extend the mic. Meaning, it just was the straight microphone stand and then a microphone. It's a long day. But I just assumed, like, usually there's a boom mic on a microphone. Not all of them, but I just thought, oh, maybe they got to pull the... I thought the microphone stand was pushed down. And I'm like, oh, when are they going to bring those microphone stands up? And they come out, when they come out to play, they didn't. I didn't realize how short Buck Dharma was. Donald Roser, the guitar player, who also sings. He's like 5'3". He was this tiny guy. And even Eric Bloom, who I always thought was like this bigger than, larger than life figure, he wasn't very tall. He was maybe shorter. You know, I'm 5'10". I probably was 5'10" then, so he's probably he's probably 5'8", shorter than I am. And they're only up, 4 feet off the stage, and we're right there. I mean, like, the camera, as far as you guys are from me right now, is probably about 3 feet. That's where the far away the camera is to me. That's how far I was to these guys. So I'm like, huh. And then, we were standing in front of Eric Bloom's, and Eric Bloom still looked like Eric Bloom. Like, if you looked at quintessential Eric Bloom, where he's got the mirrored shades and the curly fro, and the beard, and the leather jacket, and the black leather pants, like, right up, if you look in the cover, a picture of him. If you look at him from on your feet or on your knees, there's a picture of him here. And there's Buck Dharma right next to him. He looked just like that. They looked like, there's no Albacard was replaced by some other drummer, and the bass player, Joe Bacard was a different guy. But Alan Lanier, who was also playing, keyboard, and he'd come out and play guitar too, he looked the exact same. So you're pretty much getting the classic Blue Oyster Cult with this concert, minus 2 of the founding members. And it's live, and it's right there in front of you. It's just like, and this is like the ultimate Blue Oyster Cult experience. It's a lot different than this Pontiac Silverado. But, so anyways, I think they start out with Are You Ready to Rock? I can't remember what it was. And they played, it was just like one of these, it's just like this live, if you ever listen to these live albums, it was just like that. They did the drum solo off of Godzilla. They did, Eric Bloom would talk, and he'd say, like, I've seen the light up above, I see the hellfire down below. And then he went into this tirade about, thanks for everybody coming out on I was waiting for him to say such an enchanted evening. But anyway, he's like, and such a crazy night with the wind, with the snow blowing and the storming and they talk like a preacher almost. You listen to the album, that's how he talks. He's always like, yeah, here we go. You know what I mean? And I remember the crazy guy, the silver, the crazy super fan next to us. He's also telling us, you got to watch Buck Dharma play. He doesn't play his guitar like nobody else. He goes, always got he got these other assholes that play their guitar and they're and he reminded me of another friend of mine when he's talking like this. He's like, me. And he goes, it looks like they're about to die. It looks like they're going to have a convulsion playing. He's like, me. Not Donald, not Buck. He just plays like it's he's not even breaking a sweat. He's faster. He smoke all those guys. I'm like, it's one of those kind of guys, The fan was one of those kind of guys. And so he's talking to us, and, he wasn't drunk. At least I don't think so. He might have been on something, but then in like I remember Eric Bloom's coming up and he's playing the guitar right near him, and he's like freaking out with this weird this really weird look on his face. And I look over, my friend's looking at me going, this guy's freaking crazy. He's like, you sure there's nothing in the cloves gum he gave you? And I had on a Spock from Star Trek. He was all Spock, like his head, and he was going like this, and it said in the back, live long and prosper. And, obviously it caught the band's attention, because I remember they're looking down at me, and he's pointing the other guys the band. He's like, check this guy's shirt out, look at this. And he gives me the symbol like that, and I was like, well, that's pretty cool. So I had a little connection there with BOC. And it was a great concert. Like I said, I'll remember it to my dying day. It was just one of those concerts, and I've gone to a lot of concerts. And I remember most of them. Some of them kind of, it was a My Chemical Romance or a Jimmy Eat World or some 2000s band that I kind of I can't remember. But but as far as that time, I mean, that was, I was pretty young and impressionable, and that was kind of, it was before I was old enough to drink. I was only 19 at the time, so you didn't get to go see a lot of shows on bars. I mean, I went and saw a lot of shows at like the Palace and Cobo because you buy tickets, but bar shows were hard to get into when you're under 21. So I didn't have a lot of experience in that regard yet. I didn't know about Todd's Bar, how it used to be. So yeah, it was a great show. So that's my Blue Oyster Cult story. But other than that, Blue Oyster Cult also is one of these bands. I'm gonna say it is the band because there's no other band like them really. And they push my buttons on so many different levels. I mean, there's like levels upon levels on stuff about the whole Blue Oyster Cult thing that just, push all my buttons. And like, just a prime example. I remember listening to this album, Revolution by Night, and if you see the album cover, it's got like these highways and stuff. And I remember listening to this album in this Ford EXP that I had, and I was driving to, this is in '93, and I was driving to Chicago. I went there with a friend of mine to meet a friend, a guy that we had met through another friend. He lived in Chicago, and he said he lived in like the very Mexican part of town. He was, I don't know if he was Mexican specifically, but Velez was his last name. And he invited us to come out to. He had like lived in one of these like not a brownstone per se, but just one of these like rows townhouse type things that would be like on the outskirts of Chicago, in some one of the subdivisions of Chicago. Like I said, a very very heavily Mexican subdivision, and and I remember I was driving, and I was listening to this album here, Revolution by Night, and I'm just thinking about the album. I couldn't, I can't drive it, so I can't watch it, but I'm thinking about the album cover and watching like all the roads as we got closer to Chicago. And I was getting really tired too, so I remember I rolled down the windows to let some, it was summertime I think, so let some fresh air into the car, and listen to some music loud to kind of, wake me up. But, listening to this album and thinking about the album cover and the way all the roads were as I was driving in Chicago. And it's the first time I'd ever been to Chicago. It's the first time the first time I'm there, I'm driving there from Rochester, Detroit area. It's about a 4.5 hour trip. But when I got in town, I remember we're supposed to get off on Cicero and take it to Kenneth Street, because he lived on Kenneth Street, or off of Kenneth Street. And I don't know if you've ever driven to Chicago, but if you're on the left hand, there's a service highway, and then there's the main highway. And my buddy who's with me is supposed to be navigating. He's like, I think you're supposed to be in those 2 lanes over there, because how do you get off the expressway in this lane? I go, well, how do you get over there? And I remember as we're going, oh, there goes Cicero. I just saw it go by. So we got to turn around. So I finally figured out how to get over to the exit lane, or whatever it is, the local lane, or whatever. They have a name for it. I can't remember what it's called. And I got off there, and I got off on, I don't know where I got off on, but anyways, I get off, and then I go, and we're driving, and I'm like, oh, I gotta find we didn't have cell phones then. It's like, we gotta find a payphone and call my buddy and find out where we're at and see if he can give us directions from where I'm at. So we stopped, and I'm looking around like, there's a lot of Chinese people. There's a lot of Chinese type stuff, right? We're in Chinatown. And I end up stopping at a convenience store or something. I remember parking lot, and there was a payphone right outside the parking lot, and I call him, and I said, hey, we're lost. We missed Cicero. We're probably about 5 exits after Cicero. He's like, where'd you guys get off? And I go, what's your cross streets? And I get in the cross streets. He's like, get out of there. It was like 2 in the morning. He's like, what are you doing? Get out of there. I'm like, what? He goes, you're in the middle of Chinatown at 2 o'clock in the morning. He says, it's not safe. And I'm like going, oh, okay. I said to my buddy, I go, apparently it's not safe in Chinatown at 2 o'clock in the morning, so maybe we should get out of here. So he finally gave us directions, and then we finally, probably an hour later, we finally find his place. And but yeah, and just that whole evening, and then the guy also was a big Blue Oyster. He had a bunch of Blue Oyster Cult records on record too, and I remember that. And I was called at the Blue Oyster Cult Chicago trip. Just for some reason, I listened to a lot of Blue Oyster Cult then. So, well, put the album up, and you don't even know what I'm talking about here. Let's see. That's Revolution by Night. See the roads. That's what I was talking about. Let's say so that the album cover was in my head as I was driving through Chicago. Trying to get to the stuff. I was almost half expecting to see some giant lightning strike come out of the sky, that type of thing. But there's a song in there called "Take Me Away." It's about aliens taking somebody away, and I had this weird, I have, crazy overactive imagination. This thing like these, we're going to Chicago is like a very long point where there's a lot of nothing, and you could see like way up in the distance like light, and we were on this road, and I was like going, oh, this is totally like a place where the car's gonna get, you're gonna get that tempest fugit thing, that lost time thing, where your car will be, all the power will go off, and what the heck? You look down, and you're like, how did we just lose an hour? And we can't sit down very well, because we've been probed. But anyways, yeah. So that's the Blue Oyster Cult album there. So yeah, so back to these studio albums. So yeah, 1972 first album, 1973, which is the year I was born, Tyranny Mutation, Secret Treaties. Another thing that's cool about Secret Treaties, I love the Me-262, which is the first German jet in World War II when they first started to figure out jet technology. And I always loved that plane. I always got added models of it and stuff. And I always loved the Me-262. And then when I discovered this album, because they had a song called Me-262, and I'm like, oh, that's so awesome. I love that plane. Like I said, Blackbird was probably my obsession in the 80s, and then I got obsessed with this Me-262. I had to know everything about it. I built models of it. I'd get fixated on things like that all the time. So, I always thought that was cool. It had the Blue Oyster Cult symbol on the tail of it. That's pretty sweet. There's the album I was showing you, the On Your Feet or on Your Knees. I said Agents of Fortune's pretty classic. That's the one with Don't Fear the Reaper on it. That's 1976. I really like Spectres. Once I finally discovered Spectres and listened to it, I think this is a great album. This has got Godzilla on it. I love The Night, which is a great song. Nosferatu. And it has this whole, Blue Oyster Cult's got this, I guess it's like this, I'm trying to think of the best word to describe it. Not its personality, but it has this, air of, obviously it's, a lot of the songs are about science fiction novels and fantasy novels, and it has this very, there are a lot of songs about aliens and stuff like that. It's got this kind of, offbeat, weird stuff, it really plays on, pushes a lot of my buttons of things that I like. But they also got this weird kind of the band's kind of they're like these wayward travelers that travel through time, and they, they travel through this clock. In one song, Astronomy, they're talking about the star clock, and they're and there's an album called Mirrors. This was 1979. It's just you only see them in mirrors, kind of like a van, there's the Nosferatu song. It's like this mirrors and clocks, and they also got this whole telescopes, workshop of the telescopes, and a lot of very Egyptian feel, kind of like the Power Slave thing. There's a greatest hits that's called Workshop of the Telescopes, and it's got an Anubis, which is a very dope, Anubis, the Egyptian god of the dead. It's got a tomb of him with this Doberman-looking head thing on it, and I don't know. It's just they've got all these I guess tropes or these trappings to the band that the Me-262. And they're always talking about these girls too, like Susie and I can't remember what the other girl's name is. That talk about it. And I was just, I had my imagination, no pun intended, imaginos. I had this in my head, there was more going on about the band and in this weird kind of world that I kind of created in my head which they kind of, hint at all these different things. I don't know, it just puts me in such a good mood. I mean, I just get in this weird kind of strange headspace when I listen to BOC, and I like going there. And no other band does that. There's not one other. I mean, I love Iron Maiden, but Iron Maiden, I guess, kind of sort of with the Somewhere in Time and the Stranger in the Strange Land single cover kind of gives me a little bit of that vibe. But as cool as those album covers are, and they're a lot cooler than these album covers, it doesn't put me in that strange same headspace. Rush kind of does too, but they put me in a different headspace. So like I said, I don't really have a favorite band per se. A lot of the different bands, it's whatever mood I'm into, and when I do, it's almost like, I like, it's like I'm overwrite, like you're overwriting a file. It's like every time you need like a palate cleanser. It's like when you listen to so much Iron Maiden and then you go Blue Oyster Cult. It's almost like you gotta decompress first before you take in the new information, and in your mind. I'm getting weird on you, but but you kind of know what I'm talking about. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I'm just nuts. Probably just nuts. But anyways, so that's my Blue Oyster Cult craziness. Blue Oyster Cult also influenced a comic book that I did back in the 90s called Danger Man. And it was this goofy, it was a funny, like, comic-y character where he kind of like all that stuff I'm talking about, like the weird world, like the guys on this album cover. I called them the lead, because remember, Blue Oyster Cult's also, the symbol's also the symbol for lead, and I had this dream once that a bunch of these, like, weird, like, cultists were all, like, worshipping lead, like this big vat of, like, boiling lead, and so I, in the comic I had, he was like, Danger Man was like, being like worshipped by all these like cultists that were like, they call them the lead worshippers, and he'd go to their temple, and they were all like, oh, it's the great Danger Man, and then all he was doing was he was just like me in my 20s. He was just he was looking to get laid, and so he was always striking out with chicks, kind of like I was doing in the 20s, and he was just trying to meet chicks, and he would just bumble into these crazy adventures, just looking for love, and or looking for lust, more like it, and he would run into all these different things. There's a lot of Blue Oyster Cult references. There was a bunch of people who were after him, also called the Agents of Fortune. I think I had Debbie Denise was a song, and I think there was a character who also he like wronged her at some point, like he was trying to get with her, and then she was like a secret agent too, and her name was Debbie Denise, and so she was kind of like, it was almost like Carrie and the Blues Brothers, where every time she'd just show up, she'd try to kill him. So there's this crazy story comic book they did. I did a few issues of it, and put it out and stuff, and I kind of did the grassroots thing with that and put it out at the record stores. I just thought, with all the Blue Oyster Cult references, I thought it would be, more. We had a bunch of cool record stores, and they would let us put stuff, for out there for sale, and they're kind of supporting like local people, local self-publishers and stuff. And I did that kind of thing, and it didn't go very far. I've always wanted to go back and do like the further adventures of Danger Man. And every time I write a script, I kind of pass it by my friends, and they're kind of like, eh. So, I don't know, maybe it's not the greatest idea, but I really had a lot of fun doing it. And at that time, when I went to Chicago, I was also doing the Danger Man at that time, and I took a bunch of pages out to show the guy in Chicago when I were out there. Because like I said, no way to scan it in and send it email. We didn't have that technology back then, so that's like I said, there's my Blue Oyster Cult experience, the Blue Oyster Cult experience. That's what the band kind of did to me. It's probably I'm sure there's lots of Blue Oyster Cult fans, crazy guy too. I'm sure it means something different to them, and they've got their own experiences. But it's just there's so many layers to that band. It's just one of those bands where there's so much going on there at so many different levels, and it's just. And there's not a lot of, like I said, there's even the heavy prog bands, Yes and stuff. I mean, Rush. I mean, Rush has got, it kind of does that to some degree, but not. Hawkwind might be another one that's kind of in that same ballpark, but Blue Oyster Cult is just, it's unique. Like I said, there's never been a band like them, and I don't think there'll probably be ever a band like them ever again. One of the greatest rock bands of all time. You know, I guess they still consider them heavy metal, but they're not heavy at all. I would just consider rock to maybe hard rock. Oh yeah, I just a Club Ninja. There's also a joke about Club Ninja. Hey, we're going to Club Ninja. Every time we go to a club, we always just call it Club Ninja. But Club Ninja was also the place where Danger Man would. He had the spaceship, the kind of hot rod spaceship, and he'd always go to Club Ninja. It was kind of like his place to go, and he'd hang out there and try to score with chicks at the bar, and he would stay there. And it's funny because I watched. Have you ever seen the anime Space Dandy? But there's so much of Space Dandy. And I said, this is, well, I'm talking about Danger Man. It's way before Space Dandy time. Probably 20 years before Space Dandy. So it's just weird how there's some Space Dandy, it was by a Japanese creator too. There's so many things in Space Dandy that are like so indicative of like pretty much what the main, Space Dandy is a stupid boob, that goes through this, the galaxy, bumbling through life, and it's the same thing. I guess it's kind of like me, at the time, just going through my 20s and the 90s, bumbling through life. So, going from one crazy adventure to the other, whether it's the army, whether it's this, blah blah blah, So, yeah. So that's my Blue Oyster Cult story, and I'm sticking to it. All right, let's try to stop this before an hour. We're very close to an hour, so I'm going to stop it at this. Remember, subscribe. I'm going to start doing a lot more music stuff. I don't know about a lot more, but I'm going to start doing music stuff again. And like I said, I'm going to try to get some more of these Blue Oyster Cult albums, and I'll talk about them more specifically when I get them. Again, it's hard to talk about music and not play the music because, copyright. They'll nail you for copyright, and they'll take the video down. However, just go on, all this stuff is available on YouTube Music. Just go on YouTube Music. It's like, look up these albums, you go, and you'll look up all the albums and all the songs. So anything I talk about, you can just go listen to it, or Spotify or whatever you got, anything like that. You don't have to have the album per se. But I definitely recommend, if somebody was saying, hey, Tim, what bands do you recommend? And I said, have you ever heard of Blue Oyster Cult? And you might say, I've heard of them. Don't Fear the Reaper? Yeah. Do you know anything more than that? Burning for You, maybe? Do you know anything more than that? I'm like, no. Go listen. Go explore the catalog of the, discs here, and check them out. Give a listen to all of them. I highly recommend them. And there's some, like I said, Mirrors is not my favorite album. I thought Mirrors is, I'll get it anyways. Mirrors is kind of a weak album. Revolution by Night is actually kind of, I like it, but it's kind of a weak album. They say Club Ninja is the worst album of all of these. I don't disagree with that, but I like Club Ninja for other reasons. But yeah, Club Ninja is a weird album. I liked it when I first got it, but it's probably one of their weaker ones. Some of these, that's just a compilation. Live albums. I would say you're pretty much fine with the first three and the first live album. That's pretty much golden. You get the second leg of their, you get Agents of Fortune, Spectres, Mirrors, Cultosaurus, Fire of Unknown Origin, and then you get hit with another live album. I would say this stretch is pretty decent, exception of Mirrors is a little weak. Like I said, that's just the best of. And then weak, and Imaginos is a weird album to begin with. It's barely Blue Oyster Cult. There's a lot of session musicians on this one, and it's all based on a story, like a whole story that the Albuquerque, the original drummer, was doing, and it's kind of a weird album, but I like it. But it's Blue Oyster Cult, but not Blue Oyster Cult. But everything else is pretty strong Blue Oyster Cult. And I think both of the brothers were on it up until this album. Revolution by Night, I think they got a new drummer. And then I think by the time this one was out, they had a new bass player. I think that's how it went. I can't really remember. But anyways, but like I said, they're still around today, and they put albums out in the '90s and they put albums out in the 2000s. I don't really like any of them, so just doesn't have the same feel that those albums have. So yeah, all right, I went an hour. Sorry. But anyways, like I said, subscribe if you like this stuff. Like the stuff. Again, start a dialogue about this stuff. Ask me questions, anything you want to know. And then I'll come back and do another video tomorrow, and I don't know what I'm going to do yet. But we'll figure it out then. Alright, talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.